So in this lesson, we're going to review inequalities. All right, so let's review how we graph inequalities. Remember, what I have here is I have x is greater than or equal to 3. So I'm going to have a 3 on my number line. And then I'm going to, remember, if it is greater than or equal to, it includes the 3 and everything that is greater than that. So remember, we have a solid dot, and then I'm going to go to the right. So the same thing, if I have less than or equal to 3, it's going to include that 3, and we show that by doing a solid dot, and it's going to be everything then that is less than that as well. Whereas if you have just x is greater than 3, it's everything greater than 3, which is not 3. 3 is not greater than 3. So it's going to be open because that's what's going to show that it does not include that. And then I'm just going to have everything going to the right. And the same thing with x is less than 3. I'm going to have open. It's not going to include the 3, so it's going to be everything then that is less than 3. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to solve the inequalities. All right, so let's do our first one. Remember, we're trying to get the variable all by itself. So I'm going to add the 7. I'm going to have 4x is greater than or equal to 8. Then I'll divide by 4. And then x is going to be greater than or equal to 2. So on your graph, you're going to have the 2, and because it's greater than or equal to, it's going to include the 2, and then everything that's greater, so it's going to go off to the right. All right, let's take a look at our next one. All right, we have negative 2 times c minus 1 is less than 22, no, negative 22. We can do this one of two ways. Either I could distribute that negative 2, or I could, because this negative 2 is multiplying that c, I'm going to just divide by negative 2 on both sides. Now, if you can remember from before, when you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to then flip your sign. So I'm going to take that less than sign right there, and so this right here, I need to flip that. It needs to go the opposite direction. So I'm going to have greater than negative, oops, I'm sorry. This is positive 11. There we go. All right, so negative 22 divided by negative 2 is positive 11. All right, now we have to add our 1. And I'll have c is greater than 12. And then we'll graph that. And so I'm going to just have a 12 on here, and now it's greater than, so it's not going to include the 12, but it's going to be everything that is bigger than 12. All right, so our next one. All right, so remember when you've got variables on both sides that you need to combine the variables first before you do the numbers without the variables. So I'm going to then minus a 2w, and then I'll do that on both sides. So I'm going to have 4w plus 3 is less than 15. And now I'm going to minus the 3. And 4w is less than 12. All right, so now we can just divide that out. And w is going to be less than 3. All right, so I'll graph that, and I'm going to take my 3. It's going to be open, and it's going to the left. All right, so let's take a look at this next one. All right, so we're going to solve, oops, there we go. All right, so let's distribute. We have to simplify on each side if we can. I'm going to take, and I'm going to have a 5a minus 15 is less than or equal to 5a minus 6. All right, so now let's combine our variables. 5a minus 5a, that cancels out, and this one cancels out, and so now we ask ourselves, is negative 15 less than or equal to negative 6? Remember, the more negative you go, the less the value you have. So yes, and remember then, this is an all real. And to graph that on the number line, you would just kind of go like this and then have arrows going on both sides. If you end up getting a no solution, then you're just not going to graph anything at all because there's no number on the number line that's going to fit that. All right, so in this lesson, we reviewed how to graph and how to solve inequalities.